All right. Hello again and welcome to the video. Once again, my name is Wade Smith, and in this video I'm going to be discussing the Isshinryu circle blocks and windmill blocks and their applications to blocking both not only incoming strikes but also applications to setting up your small circle and other jiu-jitsu techniques from the standing position. They can also be used on the seated mounted position on the ground, but I'm not really going to discuss that because this is for street self-defense, and since you don't always know how many attackers you have, I really discourage on-the-ground Brazilian-style jiu-jitsu for street self-defense because you could have two or three attackers and you might be better off running, or you might need to do something that purely grappling with one attacker is not going to help you do. All right, so can't do that inside in the dojo. But anyway, so what is a circle block? A circle block is like in the Karate Kid movie, you wax on. Your inside circle block does this motion, and you wax off. Your outside circle block does that motion. So inside circle block, outside circle block. Inside circle block, outside circle block. And then, of course, a windmill is inside out, inside out. That's your windmill circle block. So the circle block can be used to block, anything. You can block a kick. It can block a punch, depending on the situation. If your hand's already here, then you're going to use an outside circle block to block that left hook. If your hand's out here for whatever reason, you're going to use an inside circle block, and you might even evade and block at the same time. Come into some kind of cat stance or whatever, and let's say from here you can back fist to the head or hammer fist, or if you're not in the cat stance, you can do some things with your right foot. I think a cat stance depends on if you're fighting multiple opponents, because let's say if somebody's throwing a straight punch or a hook punch from the front of me, I circle inside circle block as I evade here into a cat stance. I might have a second attacker coming from that direction, throw my front snap kick or a front thrust kick in that direction, and then from here I can back fist, I can hammer fist, I can throw another punch, whatever is needed. Sorry. Now, what is the purpose of the windmill block? Suppose you have a bigger opponent, or you're in a situation where you want to set up a jiu-jitsu submission technique. Punch coming in, so the windmill block can be the vertical windmill here, it can be a horizontal windmill, and it can be an inverted windmill. All right, that's for blocking a bigger opponent's incoming kick. Boom, boom, or boom, boom. It doesn't matter which hand's over which. There's a preferred way of doing it and an unpreferred way of doing it, though. But what you can do with a windmill block is say, I can grab the back of my opponent's head here and then windmill over and throw him over my knee as I sit here in my combat judo, throw him over my knee, and he's going to dump his face in the concrete right there. And that's probably going to be the end of the fight, or by the time he picks himself up, I can run away. So that's just an example of the horizontal windmill. Is basically a clinch behind the head. Wherever I pull that head, the rest of his body's going to want to follow. And then I can windmill over and throw him over my knee. That's combat judo taught from Isshinryu. It's taught from the Isshinryu side of Isshinryu. All right. And to give you an idea of my judo skills, and I was taking Gracie Jiu-Jitsu at the Gracie United family of dojos, which is owned and operated by Professor Raphael Gracie. Might have gotten promoted to 4th-degree black belt by now. But when I was studying with him, one of his best students was the assistant instructor at the Heman location. And this gentleman happens to be a 3rd-degree judo black belt who was a world champion at Las Vegas and won the gold medal at Las Vegas. And he also was a 2nd-degree black belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. And we were doing kumite with judo in pairs. and I was paired with a white belt because I was a brown belt, but I was paired with a white belt at the time, and the white belt was having trouble throwing me, although I didn't have any trouble throwing him. And I explained to him a couple pointers that if you can't get it done the way we're supposed to be doing it in this exercise, you can just do this and use the side of your knee behind my knee and then throw me over my own knee. All right. And it so happened that the world judo champion from whichever year he won the thing looked over at me as I was doing that, and he's like, "Yes, that's very advanced judo." Okay. Um, and so he had actually been keeping an eye on me because, like I said, I had a brown belt, and he was watching what I was doing. And he was like, "Yes, that's very advanced judo." And I had actually shown the other white belt some other techniques. Again, the throws don't always work the first time you try them if you're especially than your partner. So you have to go to whether he's taller than you. This gentleman was about 6 inches taller than me. I'm 5'9.5". He was about 6'2", 6'3". And the first time I tried to throw him, it didn't work. So I had to do something that Advincula had taught me to get the throw over. And he saw that move. And also, it was like, that's also advanced judo. So it wasn't like I was walking into the class naive of what judo was. I'm not going to say I could beat him by pure judo. What the hell? Now I gotta start all the way over because of some argument going on at a neighbor's house. I'm gonna end this stream and just ignore that, and I'll fix it later. I'll set this down and fix it later. We always got some kind of drama around here. I apologize for the neighbor's outburst. I don't know what that's about. I'll try editing it out. Anyway, I'm not going to say that I could beat the world judo champion by pure judo rules because I probably would get embarrassed, to be honest with you, because that wasn't the point. I didn't try throwing him. But the point is, I got compliments from the world judo champion. And so I'm not new at what I'm talking about. Incidentally, Professor Raphael Gracie told the story of how he got tapped out supposedly by a white belt. He might have just been humble or being silly or something. But basically, you never know what your opponent already knows. And the point was that the opponent had secretly already been a jiu-jitsu black belt, and he was just wearing a white belt and snuck into class and tapped him out. So never assume you know more than your opponent is what I'm getting at with this line of discussion. All right, so but as I understood the story, the opponent in that situation with Raphael Gracie getting tapped out by a white belt was that the white belt was secretly a black belt pretending to be a white belt, which they did to me a couple of times when I entered some of his other dojos. They would secretly hide the fact that they were a black belt in jiu-jitsu and try to trick me into naively getting beat by a white belt, which actually worked on me a couple of times. But I did train for about a year at the Ponchatoula location of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and I was at the Hammond location for about another 2 months. I tried joining the Baton Rouge location a little while back, but I couldn't get transportation to and from class in time. The buses around here take about 5 hours across town, so it was impossible to take class. Anyway, so your Isshinryu Shorin-ryu is setting up grappling techniques, jiu-jitsu, standing jiu-jitsu grappling techniques, whether it be a front wrist lock or a full wrist lock or a reverse wrist lock, or again, the double cross arm wrist lock, which is less useful but less likely to be used. But pretty much twice as as it looks. It's twice as devastating if you get somebody in it, because it's 2 front wrist locks across, and your opponent can't even. Then they can do a shout off them. All right, you're kneeing them and kicking them in the abdomen and groin over and over again until they do shout. All right. By the way, I found out that the wrists are in fact banned by the World Unified Rules of MMA, and the reasoning for banning them is not even to protect the opponent from getting broken arms and wrists. It's actually because they want the spectators to see you fight for longer than 10 seconds. If the wrist locks were allowed in the MMA leagues, the fights would only last about 10 seconds, and they would be scientifically perfect, and it'd be over, and spectators wouldn't actually like to watch that. So that's the reasoning why they banned that in MMA. You're encouraged to experiment with your windmill block and think about what it's also used for. Again, it can be used against a larger opponent where a single arm blocking might not work. It can be used against an incoming kick with perhaps an evade. There's, a preferred way to block a kick is actually going to be to both leg check and solid arm goju root block at the same time. So you have little or no space between your elbow and your knee, and you don't have to drop your arm, your standing guard very much to get all the way down to blocking an incoming kick, perhaps to your kidney or to your upper rib cage. Okay. So if they throw a roundhouse kick or a leg kick, I don't even know what it is because I just saw it out of the corner of my eyes, but I know a kick's incoming. I'm going to leg check and I'm going to drop my standing guard an inch or so right here. I'm still protecting my chin. I'm still protecting my rib cage with my arm. They can't get a kick to my ribs. They can't get a kick to my upper thigh. They can't knock me down because I'm going to set down as soon as it hits. I'm going to set back down. And I might even be throwing a counter attack with that fist straight in their face while they're trying to hit me with a roundhouse kick. So you don't know exactly what the attack is as your reflexes respond to it. So sometimes with kicks, you need to do 2 things at once to guarantee that you're not going to get nailed by it, is what I'm getting at. And that's one of the things that we do teach in Isshinryu is to double block the incoming roundhouse kick. Because it is supposedly stronger for most people than your front thrust kick, but it does take about 40% longer to reach target. So you have more than enough time to block it if you're trained to block it correctly. I rarely throw a roundhouse kick because I fight black belts and brown belts because I get sick of getting my legs leg checked, and I know they're doing the scientifically correct thing, so I must not be doing the scientifically correct thing when I do throw a roundhouse kick, which is why I rarely threw it in my 20s, and I wouldn't trust a roundhouse kick now because my core is not strong enough to do that correctly. Whereas I practiced a lot of front snap kicks and thrust kicks. So one of the things I'm going to do on my next video is I'm going to show you how to use Isshinryu basics to disarm my opponent of a Okinawan bow. All right, so that's the end of this video.